When you think about life in the USA, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's those images of big houses, shiny cars. It's a picture that's famous all over the world. But what's the day-to-day reality really like behind that glossy image? Okay, let's dive in and pull back the curtain on this one. So that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? Is life in the USA actually perfect? I mean, is it really what we see in the movies? It seems like a simple question, but believe me, the answer is, well, it's complicated. Let's break it down. At the end of the day, it's really a tale of two completely different views. The expectation, the dream, is all about luxury, tons of wealth, and just an easy life. But the reality for most people? It's a whole lot of hard work, really careful budgeting, and, facing some pretty big challenges along the way. That contrast is exactly what we're going to get into. All right, let's start with the big one, the American dream myth. I mean, is it really all about having a huge house and a fancy car for everybody? The dream that's sold to the world is this picture of a rich, totally stress-free life that's just there for the taking. A life where money problems just kind of fade away. But then you land in reality, which for a lot of folks is the daily grind. Most people are working full-time, and it's actually pretty common for people to juggle multiple jobs just to pay the bills and maybe get a little bit ahead. Sure, there's a ton of freedom, but that freedom comes with a whole lot of responsibility. So yeah, life can definitely be comfortable, but easy? Not so much.
Okay, let's talk about the money, because this is where things get really interesting. High salaries, but even higher costs. So the real question is, where does all that cash actually go?
You hear about these amazing salaries, right? Maybe something like $8,000 a month. And your first thought is, wow, that is a ton of money. I'd be saving a fortune. And yeah, on paper, it's a number that really fuels that whole expectation of wealth. But then reality hits. Let's take that 8 grand. Right off the top, a huge chunk is gone. Poof, taxes. Then comes rent, which if you're in a big city can easily eat up $1,000 to $3,000, sometimes even more. Tack on essentials like health insurance and groceries, and all of a sudden, that little slice left over for savings looks, well, pretty tiny. So the high salaries are real, for sure, but the incredibly high cost of living is just as real. All right, let's zoom in even closer now on the nitty-gritty of daily life. The stuff we don't always think about, like what you eat and how you get from A to B. So the expectation? It's the land of endless burgers, pizza, and super convenient fast food everywhere you look. And look, that part is true, but the reality is a little more complex. All that convenience comes with a catch. Trying to eat healthy, fresh food can be surprisingly expensive. And for so many people who move to the US, they just really, really miss a good, familiar, home-cooked meal. And what about getting around? The image we all have is that everyone has their own car, so life's super easy. But here's the truth. A car is usually a necessity, not a luxury. Once you get outside of a few big cities, public transportation can be really limited, or sometimes it just doesn't exist. So if you don't have a car, life can get incredibly tough, making it another huge expense you just can't avoid. Okay, so we've covered money and daily life, but what about the people? Let's get into the social side of things, which can be, well, surprisingly complex. I think we've all heard this one, right? The big expectation is that people in the USA are just super friendly and open. They'll smile at strangers, strike up a conversation while you're waiting in line, and you know what? For the most part, that is absolutely true. But, and this is a really big but, here's the other side of that coin. Even though people are friendly on the surface, this quote kind of nails the reality for a lot of people. Building deep connections can be hard. That surface-level friendliness doesn't always turn into a real, lasting friendship. And that can lead to a really big issue. Loneliness. So why is that? Well, just think about everything we've talked about. People are incredibly busy. They're working long hours. A lot of them live hundreds or even thousands of miles away from their families. It all adds up, and it can make relationships feel a bit more superficial than what people might be used to. Now, look, the point of all this isn't to say life in the US is bad, not at all. It's really just to show that it's a different life. It's different from the movies, and it's probably different from what most people imagine. So what's crucial here is to see the full picture. It's a package deal. On one side, you have these incredible opportunities, the freedom to be who you want, the potential for amazing growth, just endless possibilities. But on the other side, you've got challenges people don't always talk about, the crazy expenses, the nonstop hard work, and that potential for feeling lonely. Both sides are equally real. And that kind of brings us to our final thought. Now that we've looked at both sides, the dream and the reality, it makes you wonder,